Let's talk about policies that we don't want. We have this story from the Daily Mail. Exclusive. It's become an outdoor psychiatric ward. How California's scenic Venice Beach has become a homeless hotspot with tent cities, violent crime, and rampant drug use pushing families and tourists out. I'm not even sure I can show any of the photos because you might get in trouble on here. But you can see that for a lot of reasons. It's just wow. That's all I can say. I was in Venice only a few years ago. I skate at the skate park there all the time. You got these before and after 2015 to 2021. Yikes. You swipe across tent cities. Something doesn't work in California. Their policies are just a disaster. And it's unfortunate because, Northern California is very different from the big cities in California. And when most people talk about California, they're not talking about the farming territories and the counties in the east. They're talking about LA and San Francisco, maybe Sacramento, the Bay Area. Even San Diego's I think they still have a Republican mayor. But their policies don't work, whatever this is. There's a recall now for Gavin Newsom. What you see in places like California will be coming to many more places in this country if these policies expand. So if Pennsylvania ends up going Democrat, they're just going to keep burning the place down. It's going to become more and more like this.
I mean, you're right. I mean, California has been under a uniparty rule, Democrat rule for how long now? 30, 40, 50 years? I mean, something insane.
It was Republican before 90, 91 or 92?
Yeah. And so I think that there is a direct correlation between, this new progressive Democrat views and entrenched poverty in places like California and drug use and high crime, right? But
people keep voting for it.
I mean, in some places, and I think Pennsylvania is one of those places that, in 2022, Pennsylvania has a lot of independents that I think are going to have buyer's remorse that perhaps believed Joe Biden was a moderate. Not their fault. The media portrayed him as a moderate, and big tech censored stories that were negative about him. And so you saw that poll of what percentage of people would have voted differently had they known the Hunter Biden. I mean, that alone. It
was like an average of 6% of people?
6 or 7% of people, would not have voted for Joe Biden had they known that story. And big tech totally censored it.
Absolutely.
They censored one of the oldest newspapers in the country. So it's not like it was a newspaper that they censored. I think but I think that there's going to be a lot of independents, and I think there's even going to be some moderate Democrats saying, "Whoa, this is not what I bargained for." And so, you know me, I'm an idealist when it comes to this country. I think it can be saved with the right candidates with the right message and the ability to articulate and willingness to go to the places where you need to build bridges, and that's what we're trying to do in Pennsylvania.
What's your history like politically? What did you affiliate as in your 20s? And
I've always been conservative. I don't know. Have you ever seen that movie Legends of the Fall?
No, only clips.
Everyone on the show is like, "What? Parnell watched Legends of the Fall?" Yeah, I watched it once when I was younger, but I have a lot of libertarian, views.
Well, views.
I mean, I don't like the government. I don't think that they run things efficiently. And if you don't believe me, let me think of an example. Like Cash for Clunkers. Remember that? They come with an awesome program, right? They ran out of cash in a month. The government does not. Remember the Obamacare website?
Uh-huh. Remember when Obama gave all those guns to the cartels?
Oh, I remember.
The Fast and Furious. Yeah, I don't. Oh, and can I also say something? Classical liberalism, right? After the Vietnam Wars, really, I think, was when it was born, was all based on critical thinking and mistrust of the government, right? And
classical liberalism is like what founded this country.
Well, sure. Of course. But in the wake of the Vietnam War, if the government told you to eat white bread, most liberals were like, "No, I'm eating wheat bread," just because the government told you. But somewhere along the way, there's been a shift on the left from the sort of classical liberalism and tolerance and diverse set of ideals to believing everything the government says, hook, line, and sinker with no critical thinking.
Just, you gotta not be a conservative. That's it. So even now when Fauci is like, you can take off your mask if you're vaccinated, they're like, no, because then people will think I'm a conservative. Well, who cares? What is it that their whole identity is built upon hating somebody? That's it. It's like, what are your politics? I just hate that guy. Is that it? That's right.
That's part of the reason why. That's part of the reason why, I think it's very important to be a happy warrior, right? Because, if you're running a campaign, one of the things you have to do is draw a contrast, right? Give people a choice, right? And I think one of the ways, the radical left today's day and age, they're pretty unhappy. They're unhappy. And I feel like they're unhappy a lot.
But
and
I'll tell you this. In the past year, 2 years, we have seen the biggest de-radicalization of the left that we've probably ever seen in this country. I'm pretty impressed. So a lot of the people I knew from Occupy Wall Street, the Antifa far leftists, they're cheering for major pharmaceutical companies. They're cheering for the FBI and the government. And I'm like, I see their posts. And I'm not kidding. Like Antifa types saying like, yay, FBI, you go get Giuliani. And I'm like, I'm glad to see that you've reformed your ways and you're pro-federal government. And they're like, well, I mean, it's different now because they're going after the people I like. And I'm like, yeah, so you like the FBI, right? Like that's cool. I remember when you thought they were bad and wanted to you hated the government and were protesting all the time. Now you're cheering for the government. Now you're cheering for the massive multinational pharmaceutical company. So, hey, good for you. I thought you were kind of off the deep end. They don't seem to self-reflect. 10 years ago, they're like Monsanto bad. These big pharmaceutical companies are evil. Now they're like, yay, which team are you on? And
yeah, well, I think that's why the Republican Party they've got a tremendous opportunity, right? I think that, President Trump, he brought about a massive shift in the Republican Party, especially in Pennsylvania, right? Where in the span of 4 years, the Republican Party has become less the part. I mean, in fact, probably not at all at this point, the party of large corporations to the party of the working man and woman. Like the shift is like unbelievable.
Right. And the Democrats are the party of the elites, the wealthy elites,
and the college professors and the Hollywood people and
the
and
highest
the big
income earners in the country have been demanding for 4 years that the working class pay off all of their debts. And we're to the point now where Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders have entertained stripping the value from the working class savings to pay off the debts of the highest income earners in the country. I want everyone to think about that for 2 seconds. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren were in favor of stripping the savings, devaluing the savings of the working class to pay off the highest income earners' debts.
That's absolutely correct.
That's college degrees.
Yes.
People with college degrees make substantially more than people without it, and those people are demanding the poor pay their bills for them. I'm not all about that. That's wrong.
That is wrong, and that's you're 100% correct.
How have the conservatives moved? Like they appear to be even lefter than many of the modern Democrats. Like, no joke. You've got the Trump supporters. Many are working class union guys who want their factories back. And then you've got the university leftists with their degrees and their Hillary Clinton and their hedge funds and their super PACs. And then you see the neocons, Lincoln Project people joining the Democrats. How is it that Republicans are left of the establishment Democrats? They're defending the workers' rights, not the Democrats. The Democrats are stripping away their rights, stripping away their value, giving money to the bourgeoisie.
Look, I think the Republican Party has to embrace this new identity, this new working class identity. These are our people. These are the people that built this country, right? And I think that we've got to be there for them. We can't shun them. I mean, Jim Banks had a memo. If you've seen Jim Banks's memo, the working class memo, and basically it is Congressman Banks is I think he's great, but he's got a memo out there about the path forward for the Republican Party, and it's like a 2-page plan of what the Republican Party needs to do to be successful. It's awesome, and we should totally embrace it. You should Google it right now and have a look at it. But it's something that we should definitely look. It's showing up for the people.
Just here's what you do. You just write down what Ron DeSantis does. And then just be like what he said.
He's coming to Pittsburgh tomorrow.
Oh,
I'm going to be with him tomorrow. Yeah,
excellent.
He's coming to our Lincoln.
He's been doing a fantastic job. He's far from perfect.
He's balanced. He's balanced. Protecting people from a global pandemic with people's freedom, right? And he's done
social media censorship.
He's done a pretty darn good job.
There are concerns about what people question, conservatives, his stance on free speech issues. Like, he may be opposed to the censorship, but it's aimed mostly at affecting politicians. And then there are some issues around people's right to free speech, I think relating to Israel, that people are concerned about. But I look at, I don't just see like one thing and say flush the baby out the bathwater. I'm like, Ron DeSantis is doing it pretty well. Texas is doing pretty well too. Their social media bill apparently is much, much better. And we need to see more red states start having this aggressive legislation to go after these companies and these things. Because I'll tell you, Florida has this bill that's I believe DeSantis may have already signed it or he's about to sign it, which gives protections to individuals, companies, news organizations, and politicians when it comes to censorship. However, Facebook, as Ian points out, could be like, then we're cutting off Florida. And if you have a Florida IP, you can't access the service anymore. Sure. Then what happens in West Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Georgia? They all start lining up with the exact same legislation. Okay, then Facebook only exists in New York and California. How about that? No, they wouldn't want that. That would destroy the company. So they would say, okay, fine, you win. We'll stop censoring conservatives. One of the biggest problems that I have with politics right now is that I mentioned conservatives. Many Republicans seem to be more concerned about the opinion of the New York Times than their constituents. Like, they're more worried the New York Times will say about them than their own constituents.
Yeah.
You look at what the media says and they lie every single day. They say there is no bias against conservatives. And I'm like, but you're the one. It was Gizmodo that broke the first story, one of the first, that Facebook was censoring conservative news outlets. Now they changed their tune because they realized it's a good thing. These journalists who first reported it were like, oh, look what I found. Then they were like, no. We like that they're censoring these ideas because then people can't have them. If they don't share the ideas, they won't know. So keep them ignorant. Keep them in the dark. Treat them like mushrooms. You feed them crap and you keep them in the dark. So now you're going to start seeing a lot of states, hopefully, start picking this up. I'm stoked when I look at the past 10 years and I see how many states have adopted constitutional carry. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's remarkable. I didn't even realize that in the 80s, you couldn't even get a concealed carry permit in most states. It was like May issue. They tell you to screw off. Now it's constitutional carry. You walk in, you pass a background check, you walk out with a gun, and you can be carrying it, concealing it, whatever. Fantastic. Protecting people's rights. Let's see the same thing across the board at the state level. The states need to start passing these laws. Local is where it's at.
Yeah, and yes. I would also say that I think it's very the states that do the best have a great communication between their federal office holders, the governor, and the state legislatures, right? So I think I think a governor can have an unbelievable power if he's got a legislature that's willing to work with him. They can get a lot of things done and bring about profound positive change in people's lives. I think you take that to the next level where you've got a governor that's communicating seamlessly with like a senator or congressmen or women, and everything is working like a smoothly oiled machine. That's how you do it. And that's really what we're trying to do in Pennsylvania with regards to uniting the Republican Party, both in Washington, D.C. as a liaison, as a candidate for Senate, as a liaison to the federal government, but also working hand in glove with those state representatives who are boots on the ground in their communities every day and making sure our messaging is on point, our organizing is on point, our fundraising is on point, and we're advocating for policies that are the best for all of Pennsylvania at every level, right?
I'm concerned that just the fragmentation of the U.S. is getting too severe. When you look at these cities, they got rising crime, they have ongoing riots, and they just, for whatever reason, you get more far leftists in. And then I can only imagine that in the red areas, people are separating each other, like how many people have moved to Texas recently? Tons of personalities that are conservative are fleeing to Texas. So Texas is going to become increasingly more red. The blue areas will become increasingly more blue. And then there's going to be just no real overlap.
I think there's some people that would say that there are leftists moving from California to Texas, and that's why people are worried about Texas turning blue, right? There's this whole Texas turning blue movement. Yeah. So that's why people are leaving states where they voted in Democrat leadership for 30 years and then going and essentially voting the same way in Texas. And I don't think Texas is gonna turn blue, but people always talk about it.
I think now it won't, because people who are fleeing to Texas are conservative, or at least opposed to the Democrats.
They saw a huge rise in homeless in Austin recently. Yeah. I mean, it might just be everywhere in all these metropolitan cities. But
evictions are starting up, I think, in 2 months because the moratorium was ended.
In Texas?
Everywhere. So we were on the verge of looking at like millions upon millions of evictions.
They said on 6th Street in Austin, it's just like tent city. And in California, not just in Venice, in California and LA, there's just tent city up and down,
I heard something scary.
I don't know what streets.
It's a video rumor going around that the U.S. government is threatening subsidies of farmers. So there's a thing, I think it's called fallowing, where they're basically paid not to grow food.
Yeah.
And so there's a concern right now that because of the shortages and everything that's happening and how the tax subsidies work, that we're like 8 months out from some serious food shortages. I wouldn't be surprised. The idea that you can just stop an economy dead in its tracks and then snap your fingers and get it back going again? No. Well, the workers are displaced.
What would be the end state for that? Like, how could that possibly be a good thing? Like, I haven't heard.
No, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying anybody wants to do it. I'm saying that
But why would the federal government want to do it?
The system by which we have subsidies for farmers has created a circumstance based on everything that's happened, which is contributing to the probability of more food. So there's already food shortages. I guess you're not seeing it in national news, but if you look at these local news outlets, they're talking about food shortages. Now there's rumors that the supply chain disruption, the rising fuel costs have made everything substantially harder. Workers are displaced because of the pandemic. Many moved. They're not going to go back to those jobs.
Right.
People don't realize that the shortage we're seeing for like computer chips, what do you think is going to happen with food? Like, do you think that food is immune from the shortages we're experiencing in the economy?
No. In fact, it's the supply, the logistics chain is real, right? And you look at the cost of food and how much people are paying for certain things. It is absolutely concerning. And my fear is that because we're seeing inflation now. I think the federal government, like, they're not going to hard default on our debt, right? I do think
they're going to print their way out
our
of it.
Debt and deficit issues are the greatest leadership challenge that my generation of leaders are going to face, right? It's a big deal. We've got to figure out what to do with our debt and deficit, but we're not going to hard default on our debt. But I do think what the plan is a soft default, which is to purposefully inflate our currency so that the value of our debt is worth less. Right. And I think that's what you're seeing right now. And I think that's what you're talking to right now. And my fear is that we are on the brink of we're on the brink of what could be a recession. I think a year from now, and hopefully we can pull ourselves out of it. But like, we really have to start advocating for growth economic policies like right away. We really have to start.
I don't know how you fix this, man. The train, it's a freight train on the tracks, and then they just stopped it, and then all the carts flew up in the air from the inertia and just scattered all over. And now they're like, all right, set the train up again. And you're like, bro, one cart like rolled down the mountain. It's in the ocean. I don't even know how to get that back up here.
Yeah.
So when they shut down the economy, and this idea that you could just start it up again is ludicrous. Let's say you've got 10 employees making $16 an hour at a restaurant. Economy shuts down. These people who are in their early 20s decide to move back home. They go to the suburbs to stay with their parents. Okay, start the economy back up. Restaurant goes, we don't have any employees. We have to rehire everybody to start. We don't have any money. Food all spoiled. You can't just do it.
We just spent an entire week going all across the state talking to business owners from Erie down to South Philly, and they've all had that problem. Yep. It is not imaginary. And
nobody wants to work when you're getting paid more not to work.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, they're having issues both in shipping and logistics and food processing, and finding truck drivers, and the cost of fuel has made it more difficult on truck drivers to get from point A to point B. I mean, there are issues at every level. I mean, again, I think it can be saved, but it's going to take leadership and focus and clear communication, honest communication with the American people, which is not Joe Biden's strong suit. So, look, that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important to win in 2022. That's why the slogan is "Win Pennsylvania, Save America."
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.